Good morning, it's Wednesday the 10th of March, and just a practical note, this evening we have our Lent service, which means it doesn't get to the screen always tonight, sometimes it's tomorrow. Therefore I shall post a Northumbrian Compline appropriate to the day early in the evening. Today we substitute one of the regular readings with a reading from St. John's Gospel, chapter 4, and it's a big chunk, verses 5 to 42. We're asked to do this one day this week because this reading often falls on a Sunday in Lent, but it doesn't do so this year. And so I'm reading it today. It's the story of the woman at the well at Sychar. It's a long story, and I'm going to summarize it quickly and briefly because it's one of the most powerful encounters that Jesus has with any individual. Let's start with the woman. She goes to the well in the middle of the day by herself. Now, going to the well was something that women did together at the beginning of the day. It was a practical and a social activity. They fetched water and they exchanged news. Some would even say gossip, but of course I wouldn't comment on that. But she went at a time that was separate, when she wasn't going to encounter anyone else. And that is indicative of what she seems to think about herself. Because when we move on in the story and Jesus talks to her about her husband, she says, "I don't have a husband." And Jesus says, "You're right, you've had 5 husbands, and the man you're living with is not your husband." Now, this assumes most Western people to make sort of judgmental remarks and thoughts about her. That was maybe more so 20 years ago than it is now, but there's a certain stigma that seems to be attached to her. But this is not the case. Or at least it shouldn't be our case. In the society in which she and Jesus lived, no woman had the power to divorce a man. And to have had 5 husbands, either they would all have had to have died, or they would have had to divorce her, as was allowed in the society. So this woman had probably been cast aside on a number of occasions. And she was living in a situation that scholars sometimes call now practical concubinage, which means that she was in a household in a sort of position that was akin to being a slave. It's not a good place, and she is not in a good place. And we can only draw conclusions about how she felt and of her attitude to other people from this. We can't be sure. But what is certainly true is that her conversation with Jesus begins in a rather prickly way, and then gradually she opens up and she becomes open to receiving this amazing gift that Jesus wants to give her. The gift of the life, the water of life, that will change her completely. Until she gets to the state where, quite far on in the story, she says, "Come and see a man who told me everything I have ever done." And she brings others to Jesus. So here we have a healing encounter that is not comfortable. It's not comfortable for this woman to bring into the open what's happening in her life. But in doing so, in bringing into the open with Jesus her needs, she finds healing and new life. And Jesus has to teach his disciples too, that here his message is not just for the Jewish people, it's for the Samaritans. Jesus comes that all may have life and may have it to the full. And so this powerful encounter with Jesus and the woman gives us an insight into the way in which Jesus looks at us personally and at every person. That Jesus wants to bring healing, restoration, peace, and wholeness to our lives. And he wants us to drink of the water of eternal life. May God bless us all.